For over 200 years, Oak Island has kept its secrets hidden beneath layers of earth, stone, and legend. Many have tried to uncover the truth, but only a few have made real progress. Now, Rick Lagina stands at the edge of a discovery that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about the island. What began as a personal passion has led to the most incredible find of his entire treasure hunting career. After years of tireless effort, digging through stubborn terrain, navigating the island's infamous flood tunnels, and chasing clues that often led nowhere, Rick and his team have finally struck gold. Not just metaphorically, but literally. They've unearthed millions of dollars worth of gold and priceless historical artifacts. Each find adds another piece to the puzzle, hinting at an even greater treasure still buried deep below. This moment isn't just another twist in the Oak Island saga. It's the kind of discovery most treasure hunters only dream of. But, as history has shown, every major breakthrough on Oak Island brings new challenges, new mysteries, and new theories that could shift our entire understanding of the island's past. Stick with us as we uncover how Rick's biggest risk turned into his most remarkable success, and why it might only be the beginning of what lies beneath. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more discoveries from Oak Island. The island may have been quiet, but for 16-year-old Rick Lagina, it was full of possibilities. While other teenagers were spending their time on summer jobs or chasing fun, Rick was out near Smith's Cove, working shoulder to shoulder with his 91-year-old grandfather, breathing in the salty Atlantic air. This wasn't just a summer hobby, it was a living connection between generations. His grandfather wasn't your average old man. He was a storyteller, a skilled craftsman, and a man with decades of hard-earned wisdom. By that age, Rick had heard every tale about Oak Island, the infamous money pit, the booby-trapped flood tunnels, and the countless explorers who left empty-handed. But instead of being discouraged by the island's history of failure, Rick was inspired. That inspiration soon became action. While most teens were happy with a few $100s in savings, Rick made a bold move. He invested $100,000 of his own money into an untouched section of Oak Island. For context, that was enough to buy a small home in Nova Scotia at the time, nearly 50 times what most teens would ever save. It was a huge gamble. Oak Island had already drained millions from treasure hunters over the past 2 centuries, and no one had cracked its code. But Rick didn't see failure. He saw opportunity. For him, the treasure wasn't just about gold. It was about proving that dedication and persistence could succeed where so many had failed. Quietly, shovel by shovel, Rick began stepping into the family legacy, determined to push further than anyone had before. Along the way, he learned one of the hardest truths of treasure hunting. You can't dig without dollars. Oak Island is relentless. Every scoop of dirt costs money, equipment, labor, time. With his initial investment already buried beneath the surface, Rick faced a tough decision: dig slowly and risk running out of funds, or find a way to keep the dream alive while still pushing forward. He chose both. In a smart, strategic move, Rick split his team into 2 distinct crews, each with its own pace, focus, and potential payoff. The first, known as the Wolf-Cut crew, was playing the long game. They were stationed over a part of the island that hadn't been touched for centuries. Their job was slow, grueling, and precise, drilling deep into undisturbed earth in hopes of locating ancient vaults or hidden structures. Every inch was a grind, and progress was painfully slow. Heavy machinery groaned, thick mud clung to everything, and the odds of a quick win were low. But this was the crew most likely to strike it rich, if they could outlast the obstacles. The second team, the Drift Cut crew, moved fast. Their job was to hunt for quicker wins, scouring areas marked by historical clues, digging up smaller but still valuable items that could generate the cash flow needed to keep the operation running. They weren't just searching for treasure, they were fueling the engine that kept the entire hunt alive, covering payroll, maintaining gear, and ensuring that the Wolf-Cut crew could continue its deep push. Together, these 2 crews formed a balance of vision and practicality, risk and reward. And while the island continued to test them at every turn, Rick Lagina's bold decisions and relentless drive have taken him, and all of us, closer than ever to solving the Oak Island mystery once and for all. Running the treasure hunt on Oak Island was like trying to keep the lights on while building a cathedral. It was all about survival and strategy. The numbers painted a tough picture. The Wolfcut operation cost nearly 3 times more per week than the Driftcut crew, yet Driftcut had a 5 times higher success rate when it came to finding artifacts they could actually sell. Rick Lagina knew he was walking a fine line. One team was funding the present, the other was digging for the future. It was a dangerous balancing act, but Rick understood something that many failed expeditions overlooked. On Oak Island, you can't win the war if you can't survive the battle. The island didn't care about budgets, plans, or dreams. It didn't care that Rick had sunk his savings into the mission. The ground was frozen hard in some areas, like drilling through concrete. Every inch of progress had to be earned. At the Wolfcut site, the crew was locked in a slow, silent battle with the earth itself. The drills shrieked as they ground into solid layers, steam rising into the cold air. Success wasn't measured in yards, it was measured in inches. A full day's effort might yield only a few feet of depth, and more often than not, nothing came up but thick mud and exhaustion. Everyone on the crew knew their role was a long-term gamble, but the lack of immediate results started to wear on them. It felt like chasing shadows underground. Meanwhile, the Driftcut crew on the other side of the island faced a different kind of pressure: urgency. Their job was to keep the whole expedition afloat by unearthing coins, relics, and anything else of value that could bring in funding or investor interest. Every empty hole felt like a countdown. If they came up empty for too long, the operation would grind to a halt. No fuel, no wages, and no way to continue the deeper digs. And in the center of it all was Rick. His boots were rarely clean. He moved constantly between the two sites, clipboard in hand, radio buzzing in his ear. One moment, he was knee-deep in mud at Wolfcut, boosting the morale of an exhausted crew. The next, he was scanning piles of fresh soil at Driftcut, hoping to see the glint of something that justified the day's cost. Every choice weighed on him. If he pushed Wolfcut too hard, they risked damaging equipment. But if he pulled too many people from Driftcut, the steady money flow would dry up. On Oak Island, the real test wasn't just about finding treasure. It was about finding it before the island drained you dry. For weeks, the island had been stubbornly quiet, as if guarding its secrets more fiercely than ever. But one cold morning, something changed at Wolfcut. The air felt different, charged, like something was about to happen. Drilling had been agonizingly slow, each borehole a blind gamble. Then, as one of the augers was pulled up, the crew noticed something strange in the muck. Tiny flecks shimmered in the light, barely visible, but unmistakable. The geologist quickly stepped in, inspecting the material under a magnifier. His words cut through the noise. "We've got gold." Not rumors, not speculation. Real scientific evidence. Measurable traces of gold. They weren't big pieces, not yet. But it was proof that the ground beneath Wolfcut was more than just stubborn soil. For Rick, it was the first clear signal that their long-term risk might finally be paying off. Before the excitement could fully settle in, another call came in over the radio. This time, it was from Driftcut. The crew had been exploring a depression near the shoreline when a trench partially collapsed. Inside was a pocket of dark, compacted soil, and then a flurry of shouts. They had uncovered several old coins, still bearing recognizable designs, along with small but clearly valuable artifacts. An iron tool, a clasp, and part of what looked like an old navigational instrument. 2 major discoveries. One day. Rick stood between the two sites, feeling the pressure of months lift off his shoulders. The gold find proved the long game was working. The artifacts at Driftcut meant they could keep funding the dig without scrambling for outside help. The split team strategy, once dismissed as overly complicated or risky, had just proven itself in the best way possible. That night, the crews gathered around a modest fire on the island, finally taking a moment to celebrate. The island had given up a glimpse of its secrets, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like victory was within reach. There was laughter, relief, and something even rarer on Oak Island: confidence. For the first time in a long while, Rick wasn't focused on just getting through another week. He was thinking ahead, wondering what else they might uncover. The island had finally given them something real, and it felt like it was just getting started. News travels quickly on Oak Island, but when the news is gold, it spreads like wildfire. Within days of the breakthrough, whispers turned into headlines across the tight-knit treasure-hunting world. Rick Lagina strikes pay dirt, some claimed. Others were more cautious, calling it another overhyped Oak Island moment. But regardless of opinion, the attention was undeniable. And with that attention came new energy, new eyes, and new opportunities. For Rick, this moment wasn't just about celebrating. It was about expanding. The days of small teams and cautious digging were over. Now it was time to scale up. New plans were drawn for a full-scale excavation, targeting multiple high-potential areas across the island. More workers were hired, equipment rentals doubled, and the quiet island came alive with the constant hum of machinery, working from dawn until well into the night. At Wolf Cut, the drills pushed deeper than ever, following the gold traces toward what they hoped was the source. Meanwhile, Drift Cut, now well-funded thanks to their recent artifact and coin finds, expanded its search radius. They began investigating shoreline depressions and shallow pits that had been untouched for decades. The entire operation was running like a finely tuned engine. But it didn't last. The first major setback hit at Wolf Cut. A critical drilling machine ground to a halt. Its hydraulic system had given out from the intense workload. The repairs would be expensive, not just in money, but in time. And time, on Oak Island, is always in short supply. Every day the machines were silent was a day of lost progress, lowered morale, and mounting costs. Then, Drift Cut hit trouble of its own. Their main excavator developed a hydraulic leak, slowing operations to a crawl. It was as if the island, after offering a glimpse of its treasure, was now pushing back, testing their resolve all over again. Rick could feel the pressure rising. Scaling up had opened new doors, but it had also exposed them to more risk. Every idle hour meant thousands of dollars lost. Fixing the equipment would eat into the same profits that had allowed this growth in the first place. But there was no going back. Rick knew one thing for certain. Oak Island doesn't reward hesitation. If the equipment broke, they'd fix it. If costs rose, they'd find a way to meet them. Because in the world of treasure hunting, the only true failure is walking away. By late afternoon, Rick stood at the edge of the Wolf Cut excavation, looking down into the freshly exposed shaft. Everything about the site felt different. The data had been promising for days: traces of gold, strange metallic readings, and now pieces of worked wood far too old to be modern. This wasn't just a dig anymore. It was a threshold, a doorway. But on Oak Island, the more promising a site becomes, the more it draws attention and risk. Not just from nature, but from curious onlookers, rival diggers, and opportunists hoping to get a glimpse, or worse, steal a piece of something valuable. Already, signs of unwanted interest had appeared. A small boat had drifted too close to the shoreline the night before. One of the crew swore they spotted a drone buzzing overhead. Rick didn't hesitate. The decision was made. The Wolf Cut site would be locked down. He gathered the crews and laid out the new protocol. From that moment on, only a trusted inner circle would be allowed physical access to Wolf Cut. Heavy fencing went up around the perimeter, marked clearly with warning signs. Around-the-clock security rotation was established. 2 crew members always on duty. One at the gate, one by the equipment. Every tool, every piece of machinery was logged in and out under Rick's direct supervision. This wasn't just about secrecy, it was about control. One leak, one stray photo, and everything they'd built could be compromised. Even the Drift Cut team, though still crucial to funding the overall project, was told there was no reason to approach the wolf cut zone unless specifically called in. This was no longer just an excavation, it was a mission. And every move from here on out would be guarded, measured, and deliberate, because Oak Island had finally started to open up, and Rick wasn't about to let it slip away. The first major discovery came in the form of a tightly sealed chest. Its wood was swollen and blackened from centuries underground. When it was finally pried open, the crew stared in awe at thick gold ingots, each one stamped with symbols no one could immediately decipher. The chest was worth a fortune just in gold weight, but the mysterious marking suggested something far more valuable: a hidden history. Then came the artifacts. Intricately crafted jewelry, a dagger with a jewel-encrusted hilt, a set of navigational instruments that experts later traced back to 16th century Portuguese explorers. Soon after, coins began turning up: Spanish doubloons, English guineas, even a rare French écu d'or. It wasn't just a valuable haul, it was proof that Oak Island had, for centuries, been a crossroads of wealth, culture, and mystery. By the end of the second year, the team's catalog of finds was staggering. Millions of dollars worth of gold and artifacts had been recovered, documented, and secured. For Rick, it was the kind of validation he'd never dared speak aloud. But what came next surprised even his own crew. After the treasure was counted, Rick gathered both the wolf cut and drift cut teams and made an announcement no one expected. Every member would receive a share of the recovered gold. Not as a bonus, but as a piece of the history they'd helped uncover. These were the same people who'd endured sleepless nights, frozen hands, and years of setbacks. And now they held proof that their sacrifices had been worth it. This wasn't just treasure, it was legacy. As they celebrated beneath the same stars that had watched over Oak Island's secrets for generations, Rick knew the journey wasn't over. The island still had stories to tell. For a brief, shining moment, it felt like Oak Island had loosened its grip. Gold was coming out of the ground. Artifacts were pouring into the cataloging tent. Morale was higher than it had ever been. But Rick knew better. Oak Island doesn't give without taking. The first blow came during a deep lift at Wolf Cut. A vital winch cable snapped mid-hoist, causing the load to drop several feet and twist the support frame. Repairs would take days, and every hour lost was another hit to progress and budget. Then came the blockages. A tunnel that looked promising on ground-penetrating radar turned out to be unstable and filled with debris. Each attempt to clear it caused more soil to collapse, burying equipment and forcing the crew to pause and reinforce the tunnel walls. Just as things seemed under control, nature hit back. A heavy rainfall, pushed inland by high tides, flooded one of the main excavation pits. Water surged in faster than the pumps could handle, threatening to undo weeks of careful digging. For 2 long days, crews worked in rotating shifts, pumping water, bailing by hand, reinforcing barriers, doing whatever it took just to keep the site from being lost. It was the kind of week that could break most teams. But for Rick's crew, it became a moment of unity, a reminder that Oak Island wouldn't be conquered easily, but that together, they'd already come farther than anyone before them. Repairs were completed, sturdier equipment was brought in, and safety protocols were tightened across the board. When the machines powered up again, they didn't just resume, they came back with force. And the impact was immediate. Within weeks, the team was pulling in their biggest hauls to date. Ornate chalices, solid gold coins in near-perfect condition, and tools so well preserved they looked as if someone had placed them there just yesterday. The message was unmistakable. Oak Island was not going to give up its secrets easily. But for those willing to endure its trials, the rewards were unmatched anywhere else in the world. By now, Rick Lagina had seen every side of Oak Island. The breathtaking discoveries, the crushing setbacks, and the long, uncertain stretches in between. But as the latest finds were spread out across the wooden tables in the cataloging tent, even he was left speechless. There were gold chalices, gem-studded relics, ancient navigational tools predating any official record of the island, and something else. A sealed, iron-bound chest, heavier than anything they'd unearthed before. The experts on site believed this one could be different. It might hold more than treasure, possibly old documents, lost maps, or historical records capable of rewriting everything we thought we knew. The weight of the chest was both physical and symbolic. That night, Rick walked the perimeter of the Wolf-Cut site alone. The hum of the floodlights filled the quiet darkness, casting long shadows over the dig. His mind drifted back to his 91-year-old grandfather, to the teenager he once was, dreaming of cracking the Oak Island mystery, and to the countless explorers who came before and failed. By morning, he had made a decision. All public access to the site would end immediately. No more tours, no more media visits, no more casual observers near the richest dig zone on Oak Island. Fences were raised. Security was doubled. Even trusted crew members were reassigned unless absolutely necessary. The official reasoning was clear: to ensure the safety and preservation of the site. But privately, Rick knew the deeper reason. This wasn't just about guarding treasure from theft. It was about protecting what might be one of the most valuable historical caches ever discovered, until it could be carefully, properly excavated. The move stirred mixed reactions. Some accused Rick of secrecy and shutting out the world. Others applauded his caution. But Rick didn't care about public opinion. He wasn't here for applause or headlines. When the final gate clanged shut and the locks clicked into place, the island returned to its quiet, watchful state. Beneath the soil, something extraordinary still waited, and Rick was determined to be the one who would uncover it. But as word leaked about the lockdown of Oak Island's most promising dig site, speculation erupted. Online communities lit up. Theories ran wild, some based on historical clues, others veering deep into conspiracy. Was the treasure real? Or was it, as some skeptics claimed, just a clever stunt to drive up TV ratings or attract investor interest? Doubters questioned the timing of the discoveries, suggesting they were too convenient, too cinematic. But believers fought back, pointing to expert analysis, verified artifacts, and the sheer volume of findings that couldn't be faked. Social media turned into a battlefield, supporters and skeptics clashing over fact, fiction, and everything in between. Back on the island, Rick stayed focused. He'd been through this before. Speculation was nothing new. In treasure hunting, mystery was part of the deal, and Oak Island had never been short on either. But behind closed doors, Rick held on to one unshakable truth. The gold was real. The artifacts were real. And so was the risk. Cave-ins, flooding chambers, and the constant risk of machinery breaking down. Or worse, someone trying to steal from the site. This wasn't a scripted show. It was a real, high-stakes mission where one wrong move could cost more than money. It could cost lives. Still, the rumors only added fuel to the legend. Theories swirled wildly, from hidden treasures of the Knights Templar to the buried spoils of infamous pirates. Some spoke of royal ransom gold, others of ancient lost archives from civilizations long forgotten. Each theory added another layer to the Oak Island mystery, ensuring that even if the full truth was never uncovered, the story would never fade. As the digging season came to an end, Rick stood quietly by the shore. The island lay still beneath the fading light, peaceful but full of secrets. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Those who believed would keep watching. Those who doubted would keep speculating. And somewhere, deep beneath the soil, the next chapter of Oak Island's mystery was already waiting to be found.